Tragedy at the State Fair, and Rob Portman votes for repeal, but for not. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Kathy Kandinsky, State House reporter for the Columbus Dispatch, Andy Chow, State House reporter for Ohio Public Radio, Sam Gresham of Common Cause Ohio, and Michael Miller, attorney and former Franklin County prosecutor. Many questions remain about this week's terrible accident at the Ohio State Fair. How did a piece of a thrill ride suddenly break off, killing one person and injuring many others? It happened Wednesday night. This slowed down amateur cell phone video shows how a section of the fireball broke off, sending several people to the ground. Governor Kasich ordered all rides closed. He toured the fair on Thursday, where he promised a complete and transparent investigation.
I think about those people that were hit by debris. I think about that moment when some were thrown from that carriage. That's a nightmare. It's a terrible situation. But all we can do is what is humanly possible to make sure that we provide the safety and the inspections.
18-year-old Tyler Jarrell was killed. The Columbus High School student planned to join the Marines next year. Andy Chow, as we record this program on Friday afternoon, do we know yet what exactly happened, how this happened?
No, nothing's been confirmed at this point, and according to investigators and according to Governor John Kasich, we might never know exactly what caused this, and the governor's saying this could have just been an accident and that there are risks that you take, that you assume when you ride amusement park rides, and this is just a risk that you take that something could be catastrophic.
But something obviously happened. It was a major failure. This wasn't like a bolt of lightning. This wasn't
right.
a wind gust. This wasn't an act of God.
And they say they're looking into everything. They're even looking into user error. So maybe there was some sort of human component to it for the person who was handling the ride itself. So there's all sorts of elements that they're looking into right now.
There's a mathematical formula that says the law of probability, and that if you rip something through the air continuously and stress its parts, something will happen. I don't know if they can find out scientifically whether it was human error or whatever. It's a tragedy, and I feel sorry for the families and everybody who had a chance to see that accident. A moment of levity, I don't get on them. Yeah. For that very reason. I've seen accidents before. My kids will do the exact opposite. They're immortal, so nothing's gonna happen to them. But I just feel sorry for the families that had to experience that.
Should the rules be tighter? Each state has its own rules. There's only so many inspections. There's a lot of fairs, a lot of, the state fair, the county fairs. Mike, should it be tightened up a bit?
Oh, I don't know, Mike. The way I understand it, it was inspected 3 to 4 times.
Yep.
And as the governor stated, there's no guarantee. Again, we just don't have that kind of a world. I'm assuming that the investigators that did this and looked at it the 3 or 4 times, that it was thorough and it was adequate. They just missed something that either the human eye couldn't discern or what have you. So I'm not saying this thing was caused by slovenly work or nobody did anything. You can add. Pretty soon all you do is 10 hours a day you look at something and have it run for 10 minutes. It just doesn't work that way. So I don't know whether they'll ever find it out. I certainly hope they do, but there's just no guarantees when you get on something like that something might go wrong. Like when we all drive on the highway every day. Yeah, something can happen.
But Kathy, when you get on the ride, you don't expect that to happen. And you have to have some kind of reasonable guarantee that it's not going to happen. Is that too much to ask?
I don't think so. I mean, I think the state has to have real clear rules on what their inspections. The Department of Agriculture, as my understanding, is responsible for these kind of inspections. So I think this is obviously a good opportunity for them to review what's in place and see if there's anything they could do that maybe would improve or lower the chances of something like this happening again.
Let's get to the nature of these rides. I mean, the Fireball, it was built in the late 90s. It's not a brand new ride, but if you look at these rides and how elaborate, look at the video from this ride from last year's State Fair. And there it is. It's a pendulum. It's twirling. The people are just basically hanging off of it. These guys are totally pushing the limit each and every year. At the roller coasters, at Cedar Point, you used to ride in little cars. Now you're basically strapped to a pole and you're hanging out there.
The thing with this is that these are rides that come up and down every couple of weeks
Right.
and get moved somewhere else compared to rides that are permanent structures. at
Assembled,
places
disassembled,
like
yes.
assembled, disassembled.
Yeah.
Which makes me a little more nervous. And as you're seeing, I mean, people are demanding kind of more excitement. They want, you know, nobody
Thrill.
wants to just ride the you know, plain old baby rides anymore. They want something that's thrilling and exciting, and so these kind of rides are in demand. But at the same time, they're assembled and disassembled so often that I think it raises real concerns about how safe they can possibly be.
Mike,
And that's true. And while that's true, this is still the first time that something like this has happened in a really long time. It's not like the county fairs, state fairs happen all around the country, and you don't hear about these kind of tragedies.
I think one of the things that affects these rides is video. What kids see on video, and they stretch that and they want to see it for real. But can the mechanics of such a ride, you know, survive that continuously stretching all that metal and all that weight? I don't know.
You have to figure, Mike, with all the engineering advances we made over the decades, that the rides now may be even safer than the ones we had at the fair, you know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, with the Crazy Mouse ride. Remember that ride?
I have no doubt that they are, Mike, that they're much safer now than they used to be. But I agree with what Kathy says. I think the thing of constantly assembling and disassembling and moving them 100 miles here and 100 miles there with a routine that apparently goes all over the country for 52 weeks, that every time you do it, there's a risk. Something's put in wrong, or this bolt is not what you think it is.
Comes loose on the highway as you're driving
if it's
down.
there all the time, I think that's a completely different matter.
And the other question I have is on who operates these rides. Are these people that operate the same ride all across the country as it moves, or are these people hired locally to operate the rides while it's here in Columbus, while it's in Indianapolis, wherever?
I mean,
Because
they're
then you
low-wage
might be looking
workers.
at an
I mean,
operator.
you see them at the fairs and the carnivals. They're low-wage workers. They're not real. They're not engineers. They're not technicians.
No.
From what I could tell from listening to the governor speak for the past couple of events that he's done following this tragedy, is that I think what he's trying to counter is the like some sort of the overreactions to these types of things, because I think he definitely doesn't want to see a bill in the State House that might arbitrarily try to address something like this. And I think that's why he keeps putting out the fact that this could have just been an unavoidable accident.
We'll see what the investigation turns up.
Right.
In the end, just like in 2015, Senator Rob Portman voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act. But like in 2015, it was for naught. Obamacare remains the law of the land. 3 years ago, President Obama's veto saved it. This time around, 3 of Portman's Republican colleagues rejected the plan to repeal parts of the law. Hours before the vote, Portman tweeted out that he supported the plan to eliminate mandates to buy insurance, but keep Medicaid expansion. As he writes in his tweet there, he wanted it to go to a conference committee where his hope that negotiations would continue, but John McCain scuttled those plans when he voted against the Senate's partial repeal, killing it for now. Kathy Kandinsky, in the end, Rob Portman voted to repeal Obamacare, slightly at least,
Right.
the skinny version.
Right.
What were his reasons?
Well, I think, like he said in his tweet, is he supports repeal and replace. At least that's what he said in the past. This bill, of course, was just a repeal bill. What he was saying in his tweet is he's going to vote for it so it could go to the conference committee and they could negotiate with the House, which previously passed a much broader bill. There's a lot of people in the Senate, like Rob Portman, that said they didn't really support the skinny down version of the bill, but they wanted to see what they could accomplish in conference committee. It's kind of bizarre reasoning, but I think that's where he was coming from.
But Kathy makes a point. And I think it came down to it for McCain. He didn't trust the Republican House on conference committee, whether they would simply go to the floor and pass what the Senate had done. I think it really came down to that.
Well, that's what happened in 2009 with the Democrats, that they wanted to negotiate it more, and then Ted Kennedy's seat went to a Republican, and they had to race it through. I mean, anything could happen.
Yeah, and I think the Senate seemed to get assurance from Speaker Paul Ryan that it would go to conference committee, but you're right, there's just no telling what you can do. And I think it's interesting because in the past, as this drama about forming the health care bill has unfolded, there was a version that came out, and then when it was officially dead, that's when Senator Portman came out and said, I wasn't going to support it anyway. So I wonder if he would have known what Senator McCain was going to do, if he would have sent that tweet out a couple of hours earlier. If he would have known it wasn't going to go through, I think he might be pretty comfortable with what's happening
He's measuring
now.
his decision on the
It
tea
is.
leaves.
Yeah.
It is interesting that he actually put out his decision before the vote, because that's not typical for him.
Right.
So the question is Mike, is Rob Portman really a moderate, or is he a dyed-in-the-wool conservative, not a Tea Party conservative, but a solid conservative U.S. Senator, Republican?
Well, you know, Mike, I hope he's one of these people, however you want to label him, conservative or a moderate, that label does not dictate all of his votes. I just like people to look at things individually, and I love to see Republicans vote for things that Democrats want and vice versa. You don't see it very often, but I always have hope. I like what McCain said when he came back and said, wait, it was a mistake when the Democrats ran it through without a Republican vote, and it's a mistake if we do the same thing. Can't we sit down and talk? And I keep hoping that will happen,
You see how hard it is.
doesn't.
You see how hard it is. Here's Rob Portman, just won re-election.
Yes.
He doesn't have to run again for 5.5 years. Doesn't have to raise money again for 3, if he even wants to run again. And he was torn between his party loyalty, previous promises, and what he says is serving his constituents now on Medicaid.
Yeah, and I think what he tried to do is what Kathy and Sam have said is I'll vote for it, let's get it back in the conference and see what happens. Didn't turn out that way because Senator McCain wanted to do it in a different manner. But I don't know how. I guess I would put him as how about this, a moderate conservative.
Because also the definitions keep changing.
But Mike, the thing that bothered me towards the end was how they dehumanized the concepts that were being presented. You know, 35 million off of insurance, 22 million off of insurance, down to 13 million. And I just don't have the stomach to think about making that many people suffer. I know it's about politics, and I know it's all about that. That's probably why I never ran for office.
Well, I think that's why you're seeing so many, the Republican Party being so torn about this. There's people that really, really, really want to just repeal Obamacare, and there's others that would like to repeal it and replace it with something that isn't going to be as harmful to all those millions of people who are going to lose health care potentially. So I think that's what Portman seems to be torn with.
Andy, what happens now?
Well, I was going to say we're already seeing challengers in future races in their campaign ads gunning for incumbents, saying, you said you were going to repeal Obamacare and you haven't yet. So they're already on the hot seat. And I think what happens now is Democrats and Republicans could come together and start working on a bipartisan effort, but I don't know how much that appeals to the base back home, and I wonder politically if that's going to work out for
Andy,
the Republicans.
I think there was an interesting thing happened on the way of repealing and replacing Obamacare. It became the most popular health program in the country. Now, if you had asked me that 10 years ago, would that happen? I wouldn't believe it. It's over 50% approval now. I thought it was amazing under all this pressure it ended up like that.
All right, speaking of approval ratings, based on the news and the national approval ratings, you'd think that nobody likes Donald Trump and the job he's doing as president. Well, you'd be wrong. A Gallup poll this week shows that just as many Ohioans approve of Donald Trump as disapprove of him and his performance. And he had lots of fans at a packed house at a Youngstown rally on Tuesday.
Let me tell you folks in Ohio and in this area, don't sell your house. Don't sell your house. Do not sell it. We're going to get those values up. We're going to get those jobs coming back, and we're going to fill up those factories or rip them down and build brand new ones. That's what's going to happen.
Sam, don't sell your house. Now, are you surprised that just as many people approve of Donald Trump here in Ohio as disapprove of him? Are you surprised by that number?
No. If you remember on this show, I predicted to you that Donald Trump would win Ohio. And for that very reason, the schisms that occur between the urban and non-urban communities across this country, intellects versus working class people. When you look at Ohio, it's a microcosm of all of that, everything from Cincinnati, Cleveland, to Columbus, the university, the farm communities, the rural communities. I'm not surprised at all. And I believe he has a hard core that will stay with him no matter what he does. Now, does that help him for 2020? If he doesn't expand his base, get more independents, and bring some Democrats back to him, I don't know what his fortunes are for re-election.
We've seen Democrats in other big national races try to use the fact that the Republican candidate is supported by Trump as leverage to win an election, and that hasn't worked. So the message of the anti-Trump message isn't working, and I think those poll numbers are going to show that it's not going to work either. And as Sam's saying, the Democrats are going to have to take on some sort of different messaging if they want to win.
But Kathy, he has lost some support. He won Ohio by 8 points. So
He's lost some. I mean, there are
he's still
some.
near 50%. Though.
There's some people that aren't real happy with the things that are happening right now. And of course, I'm kind of waiting to see when we hit that tipping point. If we do hit that tipping point, where right now his core supporters love when I talk to Trump supporters, they say, we love how he gives them hell. We love the way he talks. We love the stuff he says. But at some point, they're going to measure his success on the stuff he does. When are those factories going to get built? When are those jobs going to come back? What's going to happen? When's the coal industry going to come back? And at some point, you have to wonder, if that doesn't happen, if he doesn't deliver, is he going to lose more support?
And there's a line that I hear over and over again from Trump supporters, because you say, well, are you happy with what he's accomplished lately? And they'll say, well, he hasn't accomplished anything lately, but it's because the media keeps standing in his way. So he's on message. The president's on message. To his supporters, they think that other factors are standing in the way, preventing him from getting things done.
And there's disbelief. I mean, I've talked to Trump voters that don't believe Don Jr. ever met with the Russians, even though Don Jr. said he met with the Russians. You know, I mean, there's some disbelief in some of the things that his supporters.
Mike, we've been having this same conversation since July of 2015. The same conversation. What's the tipping point? When does he go too far? When does he lose support?
I think those people that supported him, and a lot of Democrats supported hhim, as we all know, based upon the polls, I think they're there for the duration. I really do. If he doesn't produce this, he doesn't produce that, it'll hurt him, but I don't think vote-wise. These people are disenchanted with our country and the previous politicians. They look to him, I swear, not so much because they think he's a great leader, because they're tired of everybody else. Yeah. And when you look at these polls, 48%, 47%, I don't know how anybody is undecided, but 48%, 47%. Let's see who's on the other side. Yeah. Remember that too. Yeah. Maybe only 48% like him, but who are the Democrats going to run?
I'm going to make
somebody better. Yeah. I think that his supporters stick with him.
I'm going to make a prediction. Russia and the soap opera and the White House is going to affect him. Soon enough, that's going to permeate. And he has a piece of legislation on his desk right now about sanctions against Russia. He better be very careful what he does with that legislation. And the soap opera, I mean, Mooch versus Prius, come on, y'all.
But doesn't that evidence of our bubble? Because we're consumed by this. Those folks in Youngstown, I don't think are paying attention to any of that. I think they love what he stands for, and he's rocking the boat, dandy. And
well, and if you look at other poll numbers in the past, the one that I thought was very telling was the people who voted for the president in November, would they still vote for him? And a large majority said yes. And I think that's another good poll of like, what are people really thinking right now?
Yeah. We're only 6 months in,
right.
So that's the other thing we have to keep remembering.
Feels so much longer.
It seems like it's been longer.
It seems like 6 years.
I know. For the first time in more than 3 years, Ohio has executed a death row inmate. By all accounts, the lethal injection of Ronald Phillips went according to plan. No signs of struggle that witnesses saw at a 2014 execution. Before he died, Phillips said he was sorry for raping and murdering his girlfriend's 3-year-old daughter, Sheila Marie Evans, in 1993. Mike Miller, there were some predictions not too long ago that Ohio had seen its last execution because of the trouble with the drugs and the court cases and the appeals and the moratoriums. But now one looks to be problem-free. Are they back to stay?
Mike, you never can say that. This thing is a very simplistic thing. I've been involved in it for so many years. There are people that are in favor of the death penalty and people that are opposed to it. The ones that are opposed to it, these things about, well, this guy died too hard, the pills didn't work, the injection went bad, it doesn't make any difference how it comes. If you have a perfect one, if a person makes 50 confessions witnessed by priests and rabbis and he gets a death penalty, those people will still be absolutely, totally against it. And it's just a moralistic point of view from their point. And so I don't think it's ever going to change. The pendulum goes back and forth. You see a number of people who allegedly, based on DNA and so forth, were innocent, big cases, swings this way. And you see these horrific homicides. People my age think of Richard Speck and things of that nature, and it swings the other way. It's just human emotions. It's going to be that way. So we're always going to be controversial, but I don't think the death sentence goes away in Ohio for a long time.
Sam,
I agree. I don't think it goes away. And I also think there's a Purian curiosity now that's developing by people. Again, a product of the media, whether he's going to die, whether he's not going to die, bubbling up on his stuff. I think the sad part is, it is going to go away. And because it's going to be seen as the most inhumane way of treating people. But we won't be at the table. None of us will be here to decide it, because it is. Some people, and this is my problem, this guy that they were talking about killing this time, I hate to say it, in my opinion, he died. A 3-year-old child, come on now.
And the family of the victim said it wasn't enough.
Well, and the family of the victims said that
Too easy, they said.
it was too easy, that it should have been harder, and the fact that he apologized and that he for years sought their forgiveness, that was the first time they ever heard him apologize. So the remorse that you're hearing about on his deathbed was kind of questionable. And then the other thing is, Phillips's attorneys were arguing that the paralytic drug that you administer at the end was administered too quickly. That would have masked any sort of writhing or pain that he may have felt. So there still could be future legal battles to come.
Mike, you monitor the courts. Has the rate of death penalty sentences and prosecutions declined in recent years? Franklin County's never been a big death penalty county.
It certainly has declined. In our state, I suppose for larger ones, Cincinnati, Hamilton County always led by far. But the death penalty indictments in Franklin County have gone way down in the last 15, 20 years. So having it carried out, in fact, the one we had here about a month ago, the man was convicted of shooting the policeman. Was the first death penalty trial in quite a while here, and was convicted, but the jury recommended life imprisonment. So they're more expensive, although I think they're not that much more expensive, but prosecutors are getting away from it slightly. It has definitely gone down.
They still like to have that tool to force a plea bargain.
They do.
All right. Our last topic, after a special election, a promise to look at change, a year of study, a recommendation for change. In the end, Columbus City Council will remain just the same. City Council this week delayed indefinitely a plan to divide its members' seats into districts, but those district representatives would be elected citywide. It's complicated. Supporters hope to put the issue before voters in November, but Council said it needs more time to get it right. Sam Gresham, do they need more time, or is this plan?
No, they don't need any more time. The structure that they had presented didn't make sense, and nobody was going to support it. No, they don't need more time to look at this issue. And you know, I'm going to give them credit. They did the right thing. They deep sixed this thing and let it stay there for wherever they put it for the rest of their life. If they want to look at governmental improvements, there's some things you can do on the edge. But restructuring what we have, that appears to be working. And I know there's some disgruntled people out there who says it's not democratic. I'm not one of those people, because unfortunately or fortunately, most of the people I know who go to city council get what they want. Or at least they get an audience to have a conversation. Go to Cleveland, go to Columbus, go to Chicago. Try and get an audience to have a discussion about what you're concerned. I don't think.
Help to have a few bucks, though, to get an audience at City Hall?
No, I know little people who got an audience. That's not quite got here yet. Chicago, you need an alderman and you need some money to get a discussion, not Columbus.
But there is no campaign finance reform. There was no campaign finance reform really in this package either, where you can give unlimited amounts to city council candidates. Mike, is that something that council should look at?
I don't know, Mike. I think this whole thing is a political thing. I think they'd like to see, the Republicans would like to see a change in this, so they might have a Republican on city council at some point, and the Democrats will call it everything else, but they don't want that. So I agree with Sam, they didn't need any more time. They're just putting it off. And I think they'll end up winning it. There is going to be a major change.
What would it take for a major change?
Scandal. Scandal of a bizarre level. 5 times red light.
Red
So
light.
if red light goes 5 times red light, there will be a change.
Right.
Overnight.
Yeah, it's always what crisis forces everything. It's time now for our final off-the-record parting shots, and we will start with you, Mike Miller.
Somewhat redundant since I just said it, but I don't think the legislature is going to do anything about the death penalty in Ohio. We will have it for many years to come.
All right. Sam?
This is an easy one. Ohio State's going to win the national championship, and they may not be undefeated in the Big Ten, but they're going to win the national championship.
Football, right?
Football.
Because women's synchronized swimming is on like 30. I just want to clarify. Get your predictions down. Andy.
It was an interesting piece in the Washington Post about Sherrod Brown and how he was very close to becoming the vice presidential running mate for Hillary Clinton. So that's kind of propelling him more onto the national stage. Pair that with this Obamacare repeal and replace thing. Brown and Portman might be two major players in whatever could be the next bill to come up.
And Kasich.
Right.
And the governors as well.
Kathy.
I think things are about to get worse before they get better for the electronic classroom of tomorrow. They're paying back a $60 million debt to the state. There's another audit for last school year that looks like it's going to have similar findings. And the state auditor, of course, is calling on some of their funding to be put in escrow in case they shut down, and so that they'll have a better chance of recovering it. So we'll have to see how things work out for them.
That story continues. This week, Ohio Supreme Court ruled that cities and towns can reinstall those red light cameras that Sam kind of mentioned, the red flex cameras here in Columbus. But I swear, within 2 hours, Columbus said, you know, we're good. We're not going to put them back after the scandal that hit City Hall. So don't look for red light cameras in Columbus anytime soon. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online. Continue the discussion on Twitter and Facebook, and you can watch each episode of Columbus on the Record on demand from our website, WOSU.org. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.